Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for...
UnSpun. Ho! 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 Ho!
That's very good, very good.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Look what we have.
What is this?
This is rhubarb gin, Amanda. Yes, this was using Patrick O'Connor's rhubarb. Who's one of our researchers here.
He is the man with the numbers,
yes.
The cruncher of numbers.
I sometimes get lost in some of the things he said.
But
yes.
Is it okay to sip without saying?
43 communications
43 communication staff at City Hall. Oh, that's good.
Yummy.
Oh, that's dangerous.
This is a podcast. We're allowed to drink.
We are. We're allowed to do everything. We're even allowed to swear. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But let's start with a somber and sad day in U.S. politics. We do need to start because, only 3 times in the history of the United States has a president been impeached, and Donald Trump now will have that forever attached to his presidency. You know,
it's funny. I read in, I think it was New York Times or Washington Post, or somebody wrote a column about that saying it doesn't matter how he tries to spin it right now or how he tries to bury it or even if he wins the next election, he will always forever in all historical documents, the first line will be Donald Trump, who was impeached, and that is a significant stain. And he knows it. I think that's what bugs him.
Did you see the stain on his face yesterday? Sorry, that's very not
too long in the tanning bed there.
Not be best of me, but he was blaming light bulbs. It's like, dude, just ease up on the tanning cream. He looked like it's really getting to him. Because he was in Michigan, right? And then he was talking about one of the longest serving Congress people who had passed away.
Oh yeah, he's being so rude.
Oh my gosh, like just a new low every day.
Who became the replacement for that. And it's just like, oh my God.
It's facing her. He only passed away 7 months ago. So his widow is dealing with her first holiday season.
I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dingle, exactly. And oh my gosh, like and he was a representative in Michigan, and Donald Trump was in Michigan, and he said that in Michigan. So anything that he might have bounced with his base on this whole impeachment hoax, my air quotes are up if you're listening and not watching, any bounce that he might have got, it's almost like he's incapable of, I don't even know. He's incapable of presidential anything.
Yeah, he's just all about moving on and getting on to the next thing to.
Or lashing out.
He spoke for I think 90 minutes off topic.
Yeah. Just
random. He was basically trying to own the airwaves while this was all happening simultaneously, total Trump style. Try to change the story, and it did. The story is kind of off impeachment and about him attacking
Dingle
within
You're right.
one day.
You know what?
He shut the story down about the impeachment, and all they're talking about is how he treated this woman. He's a master. He's a
master at distraction. You know what? Good point. Totally, George. And what I was thinking yesterday as this all was happening is it's time to stop covering those rallies. Let them be a Fox News exclusive. Let it just be, but you know what, as a member of the media, we all follow sparkly things, but I've noticed even in doing talk radio, for the first year and a half, 2 years of the Trump presidency, there was a lot of Trump talk on the radio station there was a lot of content, and I've noticed in the last 8 months, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a year even, that we barely talk about it. We talk about it, and Donald Trump was impeached. That's in our news because it's news, it's global news, but it's not a topic that needs to dominate anymore. Like, at what point are we going to back off as news people?
And support is going in his favor. The whole impeachment process has made him more popular.
Let's talk about that.
And then the announcement yesterday, by Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, and this whole announcement, which was a big deal. Obviously, it's only happened 3 times. It's a stain on democracy in America.
It's exactly what Vladimir Putin wants.
Yes.
A wedge between 2 sides.
That's right.
To divide America, which it totally is.
And of course, the Democrats want to get rid of Trump. And then everybody was accusing Nancy Pelosi of being delaying or being sort of unclear on the next steps.
Right.
She said, we're going to go back and we're going to talk about this. I have a theory. I'm not sure if somebody else has talked about this theory. I have this theory that they're trying to figure out a way to delay this as long as possible to go to the Senate. And I'm not even sure if it's possible. Somebody could maybe give me some information on this. If it's possible, they can push it to the next Senate should the Democrats win the next Senate and Donald Trump wins the presidency, which is very likely. I've always said I think he can win another term. And I don't know if the Democrats will find a person that resonates the way that Trump does, whatever that means. And so
in November of 2020, if the House and the Senate are both
it doesn't matter, just as long as
as long as the House.
Because they send it before the writs drop. They send it to the Senate, but it can't go to the Senate until the Senate reconvenes after the election.
Right.
And then the Senate, potentially, they're risking it, becomes a Democrat Senate. Then, guess what happens?
What?
They convict Donald Trump, right? Wouldn't they? And
Yes.
he has to go to jail. And even if he's the president, if he wins, if he's not the president, okay.
Because he can't pardon himself.
He gets to go to jail.
But
there
can he
are
be?
theories that he can.
Can he be pardoned by Mike Pence?
I don't know.
Because if he wins
there has been that argument,
right? Because if he wins November 2020,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that.
I know that's a good question. And
Hillary
so
Clinton's president. That was my favorite line from the back and forth in the hearing before.
Hillary Clinton has had 2 people impeached.
Well, no, one of the people in the House, one of the Republicans, who was saying, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats have been trying to impeach this president since the day he was duly elected by the people, and blah blah blah, and went on and on and on. And you're just mad that it's not Hillary Clinton. And then it went back to Nadler, who said, "I'd just like to point out to the gentleman that if Donald Trump is impeached and removed from office, Mike Pence would then be the president, not Hillary Clinton." So there's still.
And third in line is Pelosi.
Right,
Which
I think President Pelosi would be good. Sorry, that was the mom in me, because I loved it when she was
executive orders. Yes.
When she gave a glare when she was making the announcement on the articles of impeachment. She did the first article and announced it, and the Democrats kind of were almost going to cheer, and she just looked over and was like, "If looks could kill," scorched earth. To Nancy's right.
The reporter saying, okay, guys, calm down. One question at a time. I can't answer all these questions.
Okay, let's leave impeachment, because we're interesting theory, though. If you have a theory on impeachment or constitutional law in the United States, do hit up George on Twitter. George
_.
Affleck. Thank you. You almost missed your.
I almost.
You need more
I was
gin.
thinking about some more rhubarb. Patrick gin.
43 communications people. That's a thing. If you're just joining our
If we keep
podcast, if
drinking
you've
this
just
way,
found
we'll be
us.
drunk by the end of this episode.
Well, it is our Christmas UnSpun 50.
Merry Christmas.
Yes, we're all grown up. Okay, let's get back to Canada now. Because UnSpun Podcast, you should follow us on Twitter as a podcast, at UnSpun Podcast. Very, very fun timeline to keep up on. You'll be in the know on all of the things that we discuss, or have really good ideas about what our next podcast might be. So if you have ideas, tag us in that, because we try and take federal, provincial, and municipal politics and rip the bubble wrap of spin off of it and look behind it and see what's actually going on. So I think we need to do that federally. As of recording time, there are 4 or 5 things that we need to cover off, federally speaking. We'll start with Prime Minister Trudeau reacting to SNC Lavelin actually making a plea deal.
Yes, he was surprised. And
he didn't know.
He didn't know. And of course, the plea deal, I don't think was ever something that we thought would happen, or we thought there would be something more nefarious behind the scenes. That's the whole Jody Wilson thing. So yeah, he was surprised. They're off the hook, basically. I mean, they get to pay a whole bunch of money, and they're off the hook, and they get to build projects locally, and nobody's going to jail, and moving on.
So, but the people in question who had the dealings with the Libyans years ago aren't with the company anymore, which was something that we've been talking about for a year. So they'd already sort of purged one has a crime, or has been convicted of the crime, and one sort of got off with a fine and a slap on the wrist kind of thing. But the people who are working for SNC Lavelin, I know a couple of people who work for the company, and one has had her car vandalized in the company parking lot on a regular basis because people are so mad at the company. It's like, don't be mad at the company, be mad at the people that were messing, and that was a decade ago. So, just wrapping our heads around what was going on here.
And of course, Trudeau was one who was defending all these employees, saying if we don't want to lose these employees,
6,000 jobs.
they'll go somewhere else. And often people would argue that's probably not going to happen. What SNC Lavelin would do, the theories were they'd split the company up into chunks. And
move it to the U.S.
Or keep it there, but it'd be different named companies. And, there's lots of different ways they could have done it. But now they don't have to.
They don't have to.
And so
who knew? We could have avoided all of it.
All that craziness. That what led to him getting a minority government is all started with this SNC Lavelin thing. It's really interesting, and I think he must be going, okay, I guess I could have played that one differently.
You think, how does Jody Wilson-Raybould feel right now? Like, this could all have been avoided and she'd still be Attorney General. Mm-hmm. Like, are you kidding me?
Was she a team player ever, though? That's the issue. We've talked about this on here as, behind the scenes in caucuses and how people, behave and act, and the way she's behaving right now with this not leaving her office, sort of unwillingness shows a certain kind of personality trait.
But it would be celebrated if she were a man. There are personality traits like that.
Her staying in an office?
Yeah.
Not leaving?
Guys.
No.
Yes.
That's just tacky to stay. You're
that kind of stuff happens all the time, and just isn't pointed out in that way. I think. I don't think it's right that she's doing that. I don't think it would be right that anybody does it.
For her,
agreed.
As far as she had all this credibility, and that's kind of like weakening her credibility. And
yes.
And now, is she kicking herself, or is she sort of still glad that she left that party and that caucus to do her own thing?
We didn't think that she was going to be reelected as an independent, and she was.
Yeah, I didn't think I think the Liberals would run somebody, so I thought they would let the Conservatives win that one just to trounce her.
Just because?
So they all split the vote, really, that riding. But,
we got to talk more about that in our year end.
Yes.
Which is next week. We got our top 10 news stories.
Which we're going to pre-record, so
yeah.
Let's have a quiet week in news, which we have not had once yet this year.
We thought that now that Andrew Shearer, segue,
nice.
Conservative Party leader, federal leader, resigning, stepping away from the leadership role, but still in his riding in Saskatchewan. But we thought it would be cool. Oh, we're done with him now.
But then it turns out, he's spending money for his kid's school. And then, today, $900,000 from the
expenses.
Shearer team expenses sent to the Conservative Party.
Yes.
Which is $700,000 more than they usually
Right. So
send.
usually in the fiscal calendar, it's about $200,000. And this time he hands in a $900,000 expense.
And the Conservative head office is saying that this is a fact, but they're not willing to give the details. They're saying some details, like that money was spent for media training, which he could have used a little bit more media training.
Are you kidding me right now?
I mean, that would be about $700,000 right there, I guess. And office stuff, flights. The thing is, that's what's interesting to unspin this and this thing in elections. Quite often, what you see within parties, and when the writs drop. So when the writs drop, there's so many restrictions. Election rules are really strict, so you can only spend certain amount of money where it came from. But pre-elections, you have before the writ is dropped, and this works in most campaigns. There's some flexibility, especially related to office expenses, and a lot of people bend the rules on what those things are, and things like databases, computer equipment, things like that are very helpful in an election campaign for the party. Are expense potentially as a capital expense or whatever long before the election, so that
it's a shell game of expenses,
it's an
right?
essential part of an election campaign.
You're going to use it for over here, but you'll just put it under this one.
So I'm guessing that maybe there was a lot of money. We'll never know because they're not going to release the specific details to say it was software that was called this.
Do you think?
But that would be my guess. A lot of that stuff was stuff that they needed for the campaign. So therefore, this is all when you have overly strict election finance rules, and this is what's happening in BC, and this came up this week with the mayor here getting in trouble on getting this money, and we'll maybe talk about that.
Yes, I do want to talk about that actually.
It's like when you create regulations, this is why I fought against the regulations as they were in BC. It was just, if you create regulations for elections and they're too onerous, then you just push the money underground, or you create these third-party organizations that fund, or the unions get too involved, and volunteers get too involved as far as their roles and responsibilities, and are they being paid by somebody else as employers, or letting their staff go work, or so if you create a more
the unions letting people campaign on their day that they would be working, they're going to get the regular paycheck, but they got to go stand in the corner and hold a certain candidates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These
so we'll get to that.
But that's what I think. In that $900K, I'm guessing a lot of that was related to campaign expenses.
And I haven't asked you this yet, so I don't know is a good answer if you don't know. But with Andrew Shearer, with the party wanting him out and him saying, I'm not going anywhere, and then it coming out about his kid's private school being paid for by the party funds, and then this coming out, it kind of feels like they're not only saying, I think they're burning him hard, like go all the way out. But
why though? I mean, he's
know,
going.
right?
I mean, I don't get it. It doesn't.
Doesn't that smack of like, wow, why did we need to?
So it helps
that.
for renewal. I mean, there are some people who are being trumpeted as potential leaders, and some of them are quite surprising, including Jean Shearer, who's a federal liberal,
that weird?
and then was the premier for years in Quebec, and now is being considered a potential conservative leader, which is okay. What? Yeah. I mean, he was definitely a blue liberal.
He was purple.
It's kind of along the Paul Martin world.
Yeah.
But I just
but
find
Brett Wilson also?
Brett Wilson from Alberta.
We've
very
followed him
interesting on
the Twitter.
He gets a bit aggressive.
He seems a little reactive.
Yeah, he definitely lives in Alberta, I think.
Definitely. We love Alberta. Love you, Jan Arden. Great people in Alberta.
He's the anti-Jan Arden, I think.
Yeah, calm
I
down,
think
Brett.
the two of them actually have gone at it.
They have.
Times,
They have. Yeah, no, it's great. Let's get to
But that's an interesting. That would be interesting. I mean, it's going to be an interesting. If those kinds of people get involved in as a leader of the Conservative Party, it's going to be.
It's going to garner some attention for sure. You also mentioned last week Ford.
Oh yes, as a
Doug Ford,
Doug Ford, yeah.
And I sent you the link to that when he was announcing more delays for programs in support of families dealing with kids on the autism spectrum, and it's so emotional because the cuts that he has brought to that have just devastated the support for these families, which we talked about last week. And this one's yet again a move by him that I think those types of moves will not be enjoyed by conservatives across the country. I think the conservatives typically, definitely fiscally conservative. I know a lot of really kind, wonderful conservative people, centrists, who might look at that and say, I can't vote for somebody who would put some of the most vulnerable people in our society at
we're
risk.
both parents. Dealing, having, being the parent of kids that have, the just
issues.
Regular. But then you have a kid you have a kid who's ADHD, has all this anxiety, and these are challenges that you have that you don't have with other kids, and it's a lot of work and a lot of stress and potentially a lot of money, and so
depending on where on the spectrum,
understand how challenging that is for parents and for the kids, and to not respect that. And then to cut funding, I think, is a real concern. A lot of the schools in BC don't get funding though here for these, especially when they're special needs or anything like that. Like there are schools that don't fit the criteria and are privately funded completely, and it's really tough. But the parents find these schools that are excellent. Yeah.
But they cost a fortune.
They cost a fortune. But
so
you
want to
do the best for your kid.
But what about the families that don't, like, they're barely making ends meet?
Yeah.
Those schools are not. So it's only for the wealthy. Those supports can, or for those who can mortgage their house twice or whatever.
Right.
It's so. Anyways, I digress on that. But that Doug Ford thing for me was like a flag, because when we're talking about who the next federal leader might be, because you said last week on the podcast that he was kind of positioning himself as a moderate all of a sudden.
Yeah.
To kind of
this doesn't help that message.
Well, clearly Doug Ford had some media training. Andrew Shearer has $900,000 in media training. John Horgan, our premier, segue, very
why
media.
You're a professional.
He's media savvy. John Horgan is media savvy, and yet our editor-in-chief at the Orca, McLean Kay, had asked for yet again a end of the year interview with the premier.
And was given the no thanks,
no dice,
no time, very busy.
Why not just
the only media outlet that was said no to? And it brings into question, why would that happen? And to me, their real answer is they thought the questions were probably going to be too tough. And McLean shared what his questions were going to be. If you can see them he wrote an article about it on the Orca.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a perception potentially that the Orca is influenced on the right side. I don't think you and I certainly are never told what to talk about.
Never once.
And so it's disappointing. But I would say that generally for leaders, they assess these things and they go, it's just not worth the risk. It's better not to do it and take that heat than to go there. Whatever the media outlet, and I don't think McLean would have been that guy, but whatever the media outlet, it's not worth the risk, because if they get something, one line out of you that you don't want to say, then that line lives forever. Right. So it's better to not say anything and live with it.
That's not the way you roll, though, because you and I met.
I never said no to anybody. I get a lot of heat because I did an interview with the Rebel when I was in council, because they asked, they were in the hallway, hey, can you do an interview? And I said, sure. I always said yes to every interview. I didn't care what media outlet. Do they have a question? I'll answer the question.
Which I think John Horgan should adopt.
Nothing to do with who I'd be aligned with or anything.
And I think John Horgan should adopt that with just any publication that his taxpayers are reading. He should.
Potentially, yeah. I don't know.
He should answer the questions.
I would say they're probably not going to.
No, I know, but I'm just giving my opinion because I'm allowed to.
Risk. He should, but in 2 months you'll have forgotten that he didn't, and that anything he might have said will never live on forever.
So it's politics.
Yes.
It just is what it is.
Politics.
Let's talk municipal politics, because there was mayhem at City Hall in Surrey. Let's start in Surrey, and then we'll come to Vancouver.
Yes.
What the hell?
Let's just say that Diane Watts is being missed.
Yeah, no.
There's a big movement now to get Diane Watts to run for mayor again. And
she won't, though.
Diane and I do these regular segments on CTV, and I'm sending her a note saying, I guess you're the next mayor of Surrey. She's like, no. And she's saying on Twitter, no, I'm not going to do it.
Well, everybody thinks you're going to run for mayor in Vancouver, and you're like, mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, 19 years she was on Surrey City Council.
See him change the subject there? I even got Amanda laughing on that one. We'll get to George later. That'll be our New Year's show.
19 years.
I'm going to ask him every time, and we'll clink glasses every time. I'm like, so you're running for mayor?
19 years she was on council. Long time.
I drank it like it was water. That's actual real gin.
A big gulp of gin there. Anyway, so she was on there, so she's like done. So anyway, we still have, so we have this current council who brought in a budget that was actually reasonable as far as the bottom line percentage increase.
Like the
no police, additional police, then money's going to go to police. But the chaos of the council meeting, it was unbelievable. There was like two sides. There was hundreds of people. I don't think but I've never seen that in Vancouver, that kind of level of two sides being so
It looked like a rumble was about to break out.
Yeah, I think I forget who said that. Somebody said that. It was like from West Side Story or something.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, that was my little
West Side. That was pretty good. If you were just listening to this, you need to actually go online and go to the 21-minute mark and watch that. So Diane Watts.
And you're the one wearing the leather jacket.
I am. I rocked the leather today for the holiday show. But let's talk Vancouver City Council. I was listening to...
I just think, I just think that the mayor of Surrey, it's out of control, and it's bizarre to watch, and he literally shut down...
He walked out.
He shut down the ability for councillors to speak. He took his chairmanship to the next level. I don't understand why they couldn't challenge the chair in that. I feel like the councillors were not potentially 100% aware of the rules of order. I think there was a way for them to get to speak if they challenge the chair, but maybe they have to get a majority of people to support your challenge of a chair when the chair makes a decision. You can challenge a chair, but you have to get a majority of people to support you. But generally, if it's 5 versus 4 there, I think, right? So it's always close. But if he left, that means it would be 4-4. Is that right? Anyway, so
it was wild to watch. And it's really, I don't think, resonating with residents in Surrey.
No, but at least they came in with a budget at little,
well, yeah, okay, so
Vancouver.
Why did you say bullshit on the radio,
What?
George?
I don't swear.
You totally swore on CKNW. I've got video evidence of it.
Innocent me?
Yes, and Mike Smith was like, this is a family radio station.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I of course, on a podcast, you don't worry about swearing. And even here, I sometimes control myself more than I do in real life. I think, you've worked as a journalist. As far as swearing, and I was laughing, I don't have any other issues of control. Okay. Actually, the reason Amanda sits here is she
reel it back in, Georgie boy.
The reason Amanda likes to sit here is to make sure I don't say something really stupid.
Yeah.
But
we're 50 in, and so far you haven't. 50 episodes in.
There's still time.
Yeah.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, so swearing.
Why were you swearing? What made you swear?
So that's right.
What do you think?
Question.
What do you think is
and by the way,
bullshit?
just because journalists, you know this in the world of journalism and actually politics, so much swearing.
So much swearing.
It's like behind you. It's always actually challenging to go on air. I think for journalists because they go to these meetings, and in politics too. You sit there at these meetings, you're fuck. I just said the F word. Oh no.
We gotta get the E anyway.
And then you go into public, and you're not supposed to talk like that, and so you forget sometimes because you do talk like that, especially the F word.
Yeah.
Big time.
I try very hard not to use that at any point so it doesn't pop out of my mouth when I'm working.
I use it a lot.
But you used BS about the argument over a cup of coffee.
This cup of coffee this bullshit cup of coffee, I said, argument by politicians. It drives me insane.
It's just a cup of coffee.
It's like, how many cups of coffee am I going to have to drink in this basket of goods? Which I think it's a good analogy when you talk about a basket of goods of what is affordability. It's what we spend and how much money we make and how we spend it. Every $5, $10, $100, $200, $300. Come on! If the average income in the city is $89,000, I think in Vancouver, it's one of the lowest incomes in the country, and yet they're saying, $200. It's only $200 for the average homeowner. It's nothing. You're like $200 from them. I got $200 from the provincial government. I got federal government if I'm making. I got this. I got ICBC. I got this, I got my strata fees going up. I've got this, that. Food's going up 4 or 5% this year. I'm
cup of coffee'd out.
I am cup of coffee'd out.
Yeah.
And so stop using that. My argument with council, and I said this yesterday on NW, is that what they should have done on day one when they got elected last year was they should have said, okay, let's start from zero.
Yes.
What do we need? What do we have to do?
Yes.
How much is that going to cost? So what streets, parks, whatever the basics that we all want and talk about. This is what
necessities.
The reason Vision got destroyed was
Yeah.
because they weren't focusing on those things. This new council comes in. They don't do that. And so then they put in 150 motions about stuff they want. And of course, the next budget, the first budget they brought in, which they said they didn't have any control over, but they did. They could have punted that one down the road. We talked about that. They could have taken 3 months and really worked on that budget. They chose to accept a 6% budget last year. Now this one's 7 plus. So it's over 8% increase in costs by a council that had a year to work on it, and they didn't. And
none of those department numbers have been crunched. That was the thing that we talked about last week.
Tear them apart. What's going on?
I want to know.
We joke about the 43 communication staff.
Jesus. Oh my God. How much does that add up to? Because those numbers, I know, right?
It's the average
43.
Cost of a staff person is about $100,000. So it went from 6 to 43 under Vision. So let's say it's 40 people.
Hold on, let's just slow down. It went from 6 communications people to 43 communications people.
In fact, there
under
used to be
Vision.
one communications person when I think when Sam Sullivan first got elected, there was one, and he brought in a couple more people. By the end of it, I think it's 5 or 6.
How do you justify 43 people in a communications department? How do
Well,
you justify
clearly they
that?
don't know how to do video production because he spent another $8,000 in the mayor's office to do that. We talked about that last week.
Yes.
But
he defends that too, by the way. He thinks, well, at least it wasn't $20,000.
it's like
Wasn't $1 million.
I own a marketing company, and $8,000 for Amanda, we got to change our price list because seriously.
Curve Communications, if you need an
is
affordable video done.
That was a $1,000 video. I'm sorry to all video editors, but I don't know if that thing was worth.
It was a minute.
I don't say underpay people do your work, but the politics of that were terrible.
It was 1 minute.
It was 1 minute. It was a total, and it had, he talked about having federal ministers and this and that, and how great it was to show them coming to him. Well, then they should have paid for it. I don't know.
And all of what he was talking about in the video for me was like, no, that's not fixed. Opioid crisis not fixed. Homelessness not fixed. Affordability not fixed. I mean, so what were you? You just
good
putting
job.
Putting out there a PR spin.
Anyway,
and then
so 40 extra staff, $100,000. That's $4 million. That represents more than 0.5% of tax right there.
Right.
Every
so
7 million is about 1% tax, right?
And we could look through all of the departments in City
Absolutely,
Hall and
100%.
trim back, not gut it, not make it so it doesn't
Empower
function.
the staff to find solutions. How do you guys, does that person do the same job as that person? I don't know.
Because the budget's bloated comparatively year over year.
There was a movie a long time ago called Dave with that actor who was in Fish Called Wanda, Kevin Kline.
Yeah.
I think it was Kevin Kline. He was the president.
Yes, I remember that.
And he brought in Charles Charles, the actor. Anyways, he brought him. He's his friend who's an accountant.
Yeah.
And he said, "Can you just look through the books?" He kind of became. He was a lookalike or something. I don't know.
He
The story
was.
was kind of weird.
He
But
was. They assumed he was the president.
His nerdy accountant friend. Can you just look through the books for me and tell me if there's any waste in government in Washington? And of course, the
turned it on his head.
is like, you should save money here. There's a whole bunch of things over here.
And everybody started
it's
losing
corny
their minds.
and absolutely probably not real in any form in Washington, and kind of Trump plays that card a little bit, saying, I'm coming here to clean up. And
you can do that when you run for mayor.
But they certainly could have brought up 2 or 3 people in there that would have looked at the books, talked to staff, brought them together, inspire them to find ways to save, and they didn't. And now we are here, and as taxpayers, all 3 of us in this room, and everybody who's listening and watching, and even renters, sorry guys, you actually pay somehow through this.
Oh, totally.
And worse, because it's less interesting to build rental housing if it becomes unaffordable. Unaffordability is not just about what you pay for your home or whatever. It's everything else.
It's everything. It's that basket of goods.
I'm very passionate about this because I feel very frustrated.
I want an
this.
op-ed piece on this. Would you please write it all down? Because the zero up bit for me as a taxpayer, I'd vote for you. I don't even have time to tell you what I wrote about. Oh, yes, I did. Gentle density. Look at it. NIMBYism in our city of Vancouver. We need to stop with the NIMBYism. We can find gentle density. We can find some middle ground. People complaining about people looking in their back.
Speed up the process to get those things
Get
built.
those permits. Come on, guys. Take the scissors out and cut through that red tape and I'm tired of hollowed out neighborhoods. Let's do this.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah. Whatever you celebrate. He'll be way bigger when next you see us.
Likely.